Hello and welcome to Movies You Missed Podcasts. I'm Vee.
I'm John.
And we're here to recommend movies to you without spoiling them.
No spoilers here.
How you doing today, John?
Doing good. How are you doing today, V?
Doing very well. And now I'm kind of inspired to plan out a heist after the movies we just watched.
I know, right? And it's kind of cool that there was a lot of coincidences in both of our picks this week again.
There were, and for anybody who's listened to our podcast recently, they know we both love heist movies.
Yes, indeed we do.
Mine, I think you could argue, is a little bit in the rom-com arena as well, though.
That's true. Watching it this time around, this actually was the second time I ever saw it, I laughed a lot more than I remember laughing the last time. Maybe because I'm older now and I was a lot younger when I watched it the first time. Because this movie, I think your movie came out in, 99?
99.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so it's been a minute since yours came out and since I've seen it. So it was a fun revisit for sure.
I'm so glad to hear that. Your movie, on the other hand, I had never seen before, so we'll get into that in just a little bit.
That's been happening a lot lately, it feels like.
I love it.
Yeah, me too. You got to pick some movies that I've never seen now, because I feel like I've seen so many of your picks.
What are you talking
other
about?
Than
we
Westerns.
just went through a couple of episodes in a row where you hadn't seen mine. The Untouchables.
Did we?
Support Your Local Sheriff.
Oh, yeah.
Heat.
All right, yeah, I guess that's true. I guess the last two episodes
Take that back.
Yeah, I guess I should, yeah. But I'm saying the episode of Coraline and James and the Giant Peach, I had obviously seen James and the Giant Peach, and this episode I had seen Thomas Crown Affair, but it had been a long time. So I think maybe, and the way that we do the recording kind of jumbles with my brain a little bit. So
Clearly,
I do tend to forget some of the movies that V has chosen, even that I have chosen. I remember we had a quiz several episodes ago where V, you said to me it was my Father's Day pick. I'm like, what the hell did you pick for Father's Day? Like, I could not remember that you did. See, now I'm actually drawing a blank again. Like, what the hell did you... Oh, Last Crusade, Indiana Jones.
Yes.
That's right. And what did I do? I can't even remember.
Big Fish.
Yes, I know I did Big Fish. It was a joke.
Anyway.
Moving on.
So I haven't seen John's pick this week, but before we get into it, we always like to talk about the movies we saw in theaters this week, and once again, we had a phenomenal opening weekend.
Oh, hell yeah, did we ever.
July is shaped up to be amazing for box office and for movies.
Yeah.
And John, let's get into what we saw.
I'm down. Let's do it. Which one should we start with? Oh, wait, I know. Oppenheimer.
That's funny because I was going to say, why don't we go in the order of the name of the weekend?
Oh, I see.
Barbenheimer, baby.
Barbenheimer. All right, I figured we'd talk Oppenheimer and then palate cleanse ourselves with Barbie, but we can totally devastate ourselves at the end of this conversation.
Well, I like your idea too. But I will say I'm so happy that both of us partook in the Barbenheimer weekend, because what sort of movie podcasters would we be?
I know. Seriously.
If we hadn't have done this.
We would be lame ones.
We would.
Definitely. All right, let's get into it. V, you want to start us off?
I certainly do. We both, including your wife, saw Barbie this weekend.
Indeed we did.
And I think I can say we all loved it, right?
I wouldn't go as far as to say I loved it, but I definitely had a very good time, a much better time than I anticipated. A colorful, bright, pink, sunny, Ken-derific time.
I'm so glad you had a good time. I loved it. I think your wife did too, right?
Oh, Amy, absolutely. She had me take her to the first showing of the day on Thursday, which is technically the day before the actual release date. My wife absolutely loved the movie, and I loved that my wife loved the movie because Amy doesn't like a lot of movies, and she's been a Barbie fan since childhood. You know, I think just about everybody in the world has been, for whatever reason, some kind of a Barbie fan, or at least played with Barbies when you were a child. So, I didn't love the movie, although I did have a great time. I laughed a lot. I thought it was a very well done movie, and I thought it was also a very strange movie. And it was, the cool thing is, like I said the trailer gave nothing away other than Barbie's going to the real world. And I really liked that because I did not know what the hell to expect. It was a brand new movie, you know, it wasn't like some rehash of a lot of stuff that we've seen before. And the narration was great. There was a couple of quips of our narrator. I don't want to blow anything, but the narration was awesome. She made me laugh because how can you not love who the narrator is? But yeah, overall, I think I'd give the movie like a solid B or B plus even. I mean, Kate McKinnon, there we go. What else could you want?
Yes, absolutely. I certainly gave the movie an A. I had a great time. Yes, it's a little bit weird, but as you said, it's also hilarious, and it also has a fantastic message.
Oh, yeah.
It has a ton of heart and soul. America Ferrera embodied that. She made this movie, I think.
Yeah, she was great.
And I absolutely am now a huge fan of America's because of this movie.
Oh, awesome.
It's so relevant for the times. It's an important message. And I think Greta and everyone involved did a phenomenal job.
Absolutely. It's funny because it's PG-13 rated, and watching the movie, I think there was one or two reasons why I could understand the PG-13 rating.
Yeah.
It could have been a PG-rated movie. It was wholesome, but again, it was also adult, and it spoke to everybody. Like the theater that we were in, every fucking age group was in that theater. And that was the cool thing. There were children from maybe 5 years old to teenagers to
old ladies.
We saw groups of old women and their husbands walking in. They're like, "Where are we sitting, Margaret?" It's like, all right. These people were probably alive when Barbie hit the stands.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it was really cool to see that.
And it's also a lot less silly than I thought based on trailers.
Yes, I thought there was definitely some silliness going on with the Kens. And, I've been saying for a very long time that Ryan Gosling's career ended after La La Land. And I gotta tell you, I love that he sang in this movie. The song that he sings
Did not see
is
that coming at
fucking
all.
hilarious. Didn't see it coming either. And I don't know. It's weird because the trailer it did not make me want to see the movie. And it was the same thing with the Elemental trailer. I just did not want to see this movie based off of the advertising. And I went and I had a great fucking time. So I guess maybe I did love the fine. I loved Barbie.
Yay!
There it is. I loved it. I would probably see it again. I told Amy, I was like, if you want to see it again, we could go see it again. It's
Awesome.
colorful, it's poppy. It really was a lot of fun. And I even told my parents, like, you guys should go. They're like, ugh. And I'm like, no.
They would like it.
I think they would. I think literally everybody so far has liked Barbie. It's universal, and that's the whole point of Barbie, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And now we get into the second half of the weekend.
Oh boy.
Total 180.
Yes, indeed. The new Christopher Nolan, the man of just about every few years, because all of his movies are just
iconic.
Fucking fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I'm speechless because I was thinking as I was going into Oppenheimer, is there a Nolan movie that I don't like? No, there's not. The one that I like the least is Insomnia. I know a lot of people have problems with The Dark Knight Rises. I like it. A lot of people really do not like Dunkirk, and a lot of people don't like Tenet. You're wrong. That's it.
Opinions are no longer valid when it comes to Christopher Nolan, apparently.
That's the except if you think Christopher Nolan has made a bad movie, because he really hasn't, and this one is no exception. This movie, like you said about Tenet, it's perfect. It really is. There's nothing in this movie that I felt was like unnecessary. I felt all of the human emotion was there. Cillian Murphy, I have loved since 28 Days Later.
Give him the Oscar.
I'm speechless. Just give him the Oscar. Give Nolan the Oscar. I mean, this is Nolan's second historical drama, and the fact that it's based on a human being such as Oppenheimer, it's just an absolute mind-boggle of a movie. And the fact that this man existed, and the way that it's just so good. And the IMAX experience made it all the better.
Yes, it certainly did. I was so stoked to see this in IMAX. I don't think it was a perfect movie. It's probably in my top 4 Nolan movies, though.
Okay.
There were a couple of parts of it that I did not like. I didn't like a couple of choices that Christopher Nolan made, but they were little tiny blips of the movie, like not even worth mentioning too much. But instead, I just want to talk about the ambitiousness.
Oh, yeah.
And how he made this movie, because I was thinking how different this biopic is compared to, say, Lincoln by Steven Spielberg. And
sure.
That's a slow character study. It's thoughtful, it seems very mature and paced. Yeah. Whereas Oppenheimer, I was clenching the entire 3 hours of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
In a good way, but God damn, it was intense the entire time.
Yeah, it's completely full. It just makes you full of anxiety. I texted you that I was having palpitations during the movie. That rarely happens, even in a horror movie. That bomb testing sequence, that was just incredible because
I held my breath.
I did too. Yeah, I held my breath, but I thought Nolan, he did it so brilliantly. One actor in this movie that I was actually very impressed with, Josh Hartnett. I thought he was fucking awesome.
He was amazing.
He was so good. He killed it in this movie.
He did, and I'm so glad to see him back on screen. As anyone who has listened to episode, was it 7?
I think so, yeah.
I talked at length about Josh Hartnett. This is a movie about World War II that's good that he's in, because Pearl Harbor,
yes.
And they even mentioned Pearl Harbor in the movie, which I thought was hilarious.
I know, that was pretty funny.
Great Easter egg, but goddamn, he's such a good actor. He was so good as Professor Lawrence, which anybody who knows Lawrence Labs.
Yes.
Him and so many other people. I think it made me think this is the heat of the 2000s, right?
Yeah.
And we talked a couple
Definitely.
episodes about everybody from the 90s was in Heat. Fucking everybody is in this movie.
Yeah, they really are. And Kenneth Branagh's in it, and he's great. David Krumholtz was great. I thought he was awesome because they show him so little in the trailer, but he actually is a very prominent character in this movie. Another fantastic historical drama from Nolan. The editing is phenomenal. The soundtrack is fucking amazing.
Oppenheimer has a great score. Barbie has a great soundtrack.
Yeah, Barbie does have a great soundtrack, especially when all the Kens decide to sing Push You Around. That was pretty fucking funny. You guys, please, audience, see the movie, see it in theaters, see it in IMAX if you can. If you can see a 70mm print, fantastic. But this movie commands a theatrical experience the first time you see it. You have to give it that due, and I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed because as of now, the Barbenheimer weekend is one of the best weekends of the year.
Absolutely, wholeheartedly agree, and just so happy to have had that kind of weekend again in theaters.
Hell yeah. Well, I think this is as good a time as any to detonate this episode. What do you say, V? Should we get into our films this week?
Yes, let's steal away from the new movies in theaters and get into this week's topic.
Yes, let's do it.
And John, I believe you go first.
Sounds good to me. Let's get into it right now. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, firing off. I picked the 2013 mindfuck of a movie, Trance. This movie is written by Joe Ahern. I believe that might be how it's pronounced. I've not actually heard his last name pronounced, so forgive me if I got that wrong. And this movie is also written by John Hodge. Joe Ahern is a writer from Doctor Who. He also wrote the TV movie that this is based off of. So that's kind of fun. Yeah, he got together with John Hodge. I discussed John Hodge in our very first episode, as I did with director Danny Boyle, who directed this film, Trance. He also directed A Life Less Ordinary, which was, again, written by John Hodge. John Hodge is also the writer of The Beach, Shallow Grave, the adaptation of my most favorite feature film, Trainspotting, one of my most favorite feature film and books, Trainspotting, and the sequel, T2 Trainspotting. So we've got everybody back. Danny Boyle and John Hodge actually hadn't worked together since doing The Beach, so it's been several years for both of them to collaborate again. Danny Boyle, as I mentioned, director of Trainspotting, T2 Trainspotting, Millions, and A Life Less Ordinary, and Sunshine, and 28 Days Later. This is the 4th time that I've discussed Danny Boyle. He is one of my most favorite film directors on the planet, and I can't wait to get into this movie.
I am surprised how few Steven Spielberg movies you've picked so far.
Right? I know. It's kind of crazy. I think I've only done Jurassic Park. I haven't done a whole lot of other movies. We'll get there. That's the beautiful thing about this
Close
podcast.
Encounters.
Oh, that's right. See, I completely forgot that I did choose another Steven Spielberg movie.
Don't worry, I won't ask you which one I picked that episode.
Oh, for your director's cut?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I said I wouldn't ask you.
I know you didn't, but now I gotta know. Now I'm thinking about it. What was it?
The Abyss.
That's right, The Abyss, James Cameron. Of course it was. Yes, thank you. So getting back into Trance, directed by Danny Boyle, this film stars James McAvoy, Rosario Dawson, and Vincent Cassel. Those of you, I'm sure, know James McAvoy by name and by face. We've discussed him in X-Men First Class. He is also the star of Split. He's also the star of The Last King of Scotland. He is also in Chronicles of Narnia, which V, you mentioned discovering James McAvoy in Chronicles of Narnia. I don't really remember when I discovered him. I guess it was Chronicles of Narnia. That might have been my first introduction to James McAvoy. But he's definitely been in a whole bunch of other films. He's also in It Chapter 2 and a whole handful of other movies. Oh, yes, Atonement. Thank you very much.
One of the saddest
Keira
movies
Knightley.
I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, wow. Sadder than Grave of the Fireflies, huh?
Ooh, Rival.
Right.
Good pick.
Wow.
Hey,
okay.
you remembered one of the movies I picked previously.
I did. Look at that.
Good
Wow.
job.
Cool. I guess when you dig into your subconscious like they do in this movie Trance, you can find anything.
He was also in my pick for episode 2 because he starred in Atomic Blonde.
That's right. He is an Atomic Blonde. He is Percival, and we love him in Atomic Blonde. He's
We certainly
badass
do.
in that movie.
Yeah.
I just like James McAvoy all around. Like, I've never not really enjoyed his work. Which is funny
Agreed.
because I remember when he was cast as Professor X, I was like, bullshit, no way. And then I saw it, and I was like, fuck yeah, hell, I'm in.
So in. Oh, and he was
Yeah.
also in that Angelina Jolie movie, Wanted.
Wanted, that's right. I never did see Wanted.
Oh my
but
God.
yeah,
It's ridiculous, but very fun.
I should check it out.
Extremely early part of Chris Pratt's, too.
Oh, wow.
Back
And
then.
that is a Tamir Beckman-Bedoff directed feature.
Oh,
And he
yeah.
did Night Watch and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And Rosario Dawson is also in this film. She's also in a whole handful of things. She's in Sin City. She plays Gail in the middle story
Damn,
with
she's awesome.
Clive Owen and Dwight. Oh, yeah, so badass. She's also in Alexander with Colin Farrell,
Oh,
directed by
dumb.
Oliver Stone.
I hate that movie.
Yeah. She's also in Josie and the Pussycats. Can't forget that. She's also in Clerks 2, which I thought she was great in Clerks 2.
Oh, she's so good in Clerks, too.
Yeah, that movie alone is hysterical from start to finish.
I went to the premiere of that with the whole cast, including her, actually.
Oh, badass. Very cool. She's also in the film adaptation of Rent, which I never did see, but I've listened to the soundtrack, and I know that she sings also, and that's great. She's got a very lovely voice.
She's also in the second season of The Mandalorian. She's a Jedi, and she's badass.
Oh, very cool. Oh, yeah, doesn't she have her own show now? Okshana or something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Yeah, I have not watched any of that, but I know a lot of people are big fans of that, so congrats to her, and obviously everybody that seems to enjoy that stuff. I do love Star Wars. I just haven't watched any of the series. Vincent Cassel's another actor in this movie. He's a ferocious actor. He is very recognizable if you've seen Black Swan. He's the director of Swan Lake. He's the one that's trying to get Nina to, bust out of her shell. He's also in a killer movie with Clive Owen and Jennifer Aniston called Derailed, which I think is a very, very underrated movie. We're likely going to discuss it on this podcast because I saw it twice in theaters, and I don't own it for whatever reason, but I love that movie. He's also in the Out of Control movie that I will never in my life watch, directed by Gaspar Noé, called Irreversible with Monica Bellucci. That's one of those famous movies that's so fucked up you got to see it, but I know why it's so fucked up, and that's why I'm not going to see it.
Yes,
but,
agreed.
Yeah, Vincent Cassel is definitely a great actor in just about anything that he's been in.
He also is in Oceans 12 and 13. He's the Frenchman in that movie. For any of you who've watched either of those movies, I knew him from being Monica Bellucci's partner for many, many years.
Yeah.
Because
After they did Irreversible.
what a lucky bastard.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. He's also in a movie with Kristen Stewart called Underwater, which was not a terrible movie.
I've heard
I actually
that.
enjoyed that movie quite a bit. I thought it was pretty fun. Not a great movie, but it was fun. He's also in Jason Bourne, the final Jason Bourne movie with Matt Damon and Alicia Vikander. I thought that was also a pretty good movie with him in it as well. And he's been around for a very long time. I haven't seen all of his work, but everything that I've seen him in, I've very much enjoyed. And I was very glad to see him show up in this movie because, again, I'm a fan of Danny Boyle, and I love John Hodge and McAvoy and Dawson. So it was great to see all of them come together to make this movie. Now, getting into the plot of Trance, I know I don't ever really talk about the actors or anything like that. The thing about this episode, for me at least, is there's very little to talk about plot-wise because, again, here at Movies You Miss Podcast, we do not do spoilers. So let's get into the plot, or at least what I can share of the plot of Trance. The movie opens up with Simon breaking the fourth wall, explaining to us his career as an auctioneer at an art house in London. He is breaking down how thievery used to go down and how it used to be so easy for people to come and steal all this art. And now they have all these different protocols. And oddly enough, the beginning of this movie is similar to another movie we're going to be discussing in the next couple of minutes here.
It is, yes, and I love anytime a movie shows the reenactments of what a character is describing.
Yeah, I like that too. And it's kind of fun because in a way, it's similar to like Ocean's 11 or those other heist movies where they're like, now this is how we're going to do it. And the way that Simon breaks it down is so elegant and so awesome because he's James McAvoy and he's handsome. He's got those crystal blue eyes. And the cool thing about the way this movie is shot is it's very dreamlike early on. Like there's a lot of lens flare, but there's also a lot of out of focus shots that come into focus, and in a weird way, while Simon is explaining all of this, you're kind of not sure if a lot of this is in his head or if it's actually happening. And that's one thing that I really liked about the first few minutes of this movie. Lo and behold, a heist is going down, and Simon's got to take this painting down below and get it hidden from the bad guys. And the bad guys are, of course, led by Vincent Cassel. Simon notices that this is happening. He takes the painting. He gets down below. In the midst of all the madness during this heist sequence, Simon does unfortunately run into Frank down below, and Frank, in order to get this painting that he's after, has to knock the shit out of Simon with the butt of a shotgun. And as a result, Simon gets a brain injury and has amnesia, which, next thing we know, Frank has the wrong painting. It's not the painting that he's actually there for. So he goes to find Simon and get Simon to basically tell him where it is, otherwise he's going to kill him. The typical trope of, if you don't tell me where it is, I'm going to kill you or I'm going to kill your whole damn family, right? And horrible torture sequence in this movie pretty early on.
Trigger alert.
Between, it's pretty bad. And this movie is R-rated. It does have some pretty intense violence, and there is definitely some nudity in this movie, and we'll get into that shortly. Frank he's got his goons torturing Simon. Tell me where it is, tell me where it is. I don't know where it is, I don't know where it is. So, in a way, for Frank to get the information from Simon, he suggests that they go to a hypnotherapist. And he puts this laptop in front of Simon. He says, pick a hypnotherapist. We're going to take you there. We're going to get into the deep recesses of your brain. We're going to unlock your memory, and we're going to find where you hid this painting from me. Otherwise, you're going to fucking die. So Simon picks Elizabeth Lamb, played by Rosario Dawson. So now Elizabeth has been introduced. We are brought into her world and her realm quite a bit. And for the rest of the movie, we're just trying to figure out, as an audience member, where everybody's motivations lie, who is the good guy, and do we believe what we're seeing, which was one thing that Danny Boyle was very adamant about while making this movie, was that he wasn't sure what the audience was going to believe, because the way this was shot and even edited, this could have been cut several different ways to be from the perspective of a certain character. But the cool thing about this movie is that it's from the perspective of all three of them. I've seen this movie several times. I own the DVD. I saw it opening weekend at a very small theater in West Hollywood with my dad. We used to pretty much see every Danny Boyle movie together. He wasn't a big fan of Slumdog Millionaire, so I had to kind of motivate him every now and then to go to a Danny Boyle movie. A cool thing about actually making this movie, the entire cast did undergo hypnotherapy to get into the mindset of this movie, and apparently the only one that it seemed to work for was James McAvoy, which is strange.
I've never been hypnotized before, actually.
I have not either. When I was in high school, we had a huge rivalry swim meet every year with the school, across town. One of the guys that I went to high school with, his dad was a hypnotherapist, or said that he was. And he came into the class to try and hypnotize us. I'll never forget it. He was like, you're standing at the top of a very tall stairway, and you take one step, and you take two steps, and you take three steps. And I was just sitting there I tried to get into it, but it didn't work. So that was really the only time that I've ever done any kind of hypnotherapy. But I've always seen hypnotists at a fair or, a theme park or something like that. And those are always pretty entertaining shows. There's a couple of underlying things in this movie that Simon has somewhat of a fetish for. And I thought this was kind of funny because Rosario Dawson said that the hardest part of making this movie for her was having to be waxed.
Can confirm.
Yes. And there is some full frontal female nudity in this film, and Rosario Dawson's actually gone on record saying that if she feels that it adds to the character and that's where the character would be in this point in the movie or in the story, then it's something that she can completely be okay with. And she kind of did the same thing with Alexander. I think that was actually her first nude scene, was in Alexander with Colin Farrell.
Okay. Yeah, as long as it's an actor's choice. That's what we always say, right?
Yeah, of course, of course. This movie was filmed actually during a break that Danny Boyle had in the 2-year preparation that he was going through for the opening and closing ceremonies of the 2012 Summer Olympics. And if anybody remembers the opening and closing ceremonies, that was directed by Danny Boyle, which was pretty badass when I found that out.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah, that whole opening was pretty... I remember that opening was wild. Mm-hmm. And the closing ceremonies were pretty great, too. Vincent Cassel and Rosario Dawson and James McAvoy have all gone on to say that Danny Boyle and director of photography Anthony Dodd Mantle are two of the easiest people to work with. The energy level that they have on every day of shooting was palpable and completely resonated with everybody else. Vincent Cassel said that is how he likes to make a movie. He likes to make a movie that's easy. He likes to have fun making his movies because, of course, everybody's been involved in a movie or two that was not fun making. Mm-hmm. Ed Harris in The Abyss. And, so many other people. The Rock with Fast and the Furious or something like that. Everybody has their rivalries. But everybody has gone on to say that Danny Boyle is an absolute joy to work with. And I love hearing that because he's one of my favorite directors. And I thought he definitely got some very fascinating performances out of all three of these people for this movie.
Absolutely.
Danny Boyle was very interested in this movie, mainly because of the female lead. He had never done a movie with a female lead before, and I was very excited to read that because, again, we love female-led films here, and
we do.
If you really think about it, it's a 3-character film, and they're all very important, they're very prominent, and they're in, I would say, 95% of the movie. So it's not like,
they're all the main character.
Yeah, there's no supporting character in any 3 of them. They all support each other very well, and I thought that they all played off each other very well. And again, the movie trips me the fuck out. And we haven't gotten into it yet, but V, I'm curious, what did you think of Trance while I've been blabbering on about how I can't spoil this movie?
I thought it was a heist movie at first, and I love breaking the fourth wall. It's one of my favorite things in movies. It's probably one of the reasons why I like Deadpool as much as I do.
Oh, yeah.
I love it, as I said, that they show the plan acted out while there's a voiceover. I always love that in movies. It's always so fun. Mm-hmm. And I love heist movies, so at the beginning of this movie, I was like, okay, cool, this is a heist movie, it's a bit grittier than mine, it's a bit dark. I recognize Simon Surgeon after his head injury because that is Simon Kuntz, the actor who played Martin in the Parent Trap remake with Lindsay Lohan. He was their butler.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
I love that movie, and he was great in it, and so I recognized him in this movie. And as you said, there's this torture scene. It has to do with fingernails, trigger warning for anyone.
Yeah.
Definitely gave me the heebie-jeebies. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is this cool heist movie. There's probably going to be a twist. I'm trying to follow along. And then halfway through, something happens and I go, oh, I don't know what's going on at all.
Yeah, right?
I thought I did. And you are thrown completely for a loop. I love movies that can surprise me. I love third acts that I don't see coming.
Yeah.
And I had a hell of a lot of fun with this movie. It's intense.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It's violent. It's sexual. There's, as you said, a lot of nudity in it.
Yes.
It's gritty. I would only recommend it to certain people in my circles.
Right.
But goddamn, is it a good movie that you do not see coming.
Yeah, and that's definitely what I like about it the most. I remember watching this in theaters, and like you said, something happens, and I know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Once it goes down, you're like, oh, okay, and then you kind of sit back and you get comfortable, and you're like, all right, I'm along for the ride even more now. And then as, like you said, that third act starts to unfold, you're like, what
I
the
have
fuck?
No idea. Like, I had no idea. Yeah, and you're just like, oh, shit.
Yeah, it is, like I said, it's a mind fuck. Like, it gets you, especially that third act. It really, like, watching it this time around, I hadn't seen it in a couple of years. I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my God. Whoa. Like, I'll never forget watching this in theaters with my dad, and at one point my dad goes, holy shit. And I was like, yeah, this movie is fucking killer right now. And it is, and I think it holds up. It's 10 years old.
Oh, it totally does.
Still, yeah, it's just a badass all around. It is a heist movie, but again, similar to Tenet and Inception, it's kind of like a mind heist movie too. And that's another thing that I really like about it, because I love getting deep into dreams and subconscious, and the way that all of it plays out in this movie is done very, very well. And the editing in this movie is top fucking notch.
Yes, and I think those are great analogies for any of our audience who enjoyed Tenet or Inception and can handle a bit more violence and a bit grittier feel. Definitely give this movie a shot.
Awesome. Well, I'm very glad to hear that you enjoyed it. I really was not sure. I watched the trailer after watching the movie, and I texted you immediately, do not watch the trailer. Did you ever watch the trailer?
I did not. I followed your
cool.
direction.
Well, after you watched the movie, I thought maybe you would have watched the trailer because you like to do that too. But maybe now that we've seen it, watch the trailer and tell me if I made a good call or not.
Oh,
because
okay, will do.
I'm going to tell you, after watching it and watching the trailer, I was like, no, nobody should watch the trailer. Just watch this movie.
Okay.
Just take our word for it, or if you're a fan of anybody involved in this movie, give it a shot.
Also, I do think Rosario Dawson could absolutely hypnotize me because she has such a calming voice in this movie.
Absolutely, yeah. That was one of the main reasons she was chosen for this movie, was because of how soft and elegant and eloquent. And yeah, she knocks it out of the park. The hypnotism scenes with her in the office with Simon really did put me at ease in a very strange way. And then, of course, right after that, another jarring thing happens, and you're like, oh, fuck, like you just been punched in the fucking chest.
Yes.
It's crazy. And what's interesting is there's a couple other actresses that were considered for Elizabeth's character. Scarlett Johansson.
No.
Yes. The voice.
Oh, yeah, she was the voice in Her. Good point.
Yes, she was. And I just like her kind of raspy, soft voice. Eva Green was another possibility.
Hell yeah. Vesper Lynn from Casino Royale, Bond's love interest. She has a phenomenal voice, and she is sexy as hell. She could totally have done this role.
Awesome. Yes, I definitely agree that she is sexy. I don't remember Casino Royale. And another actress that was considered for Elizabeth was Zoe Saldana, which would have been very interesting, and I don't think Zoe Saldana took the role for certain reasons. But maybe not. It could have just been Rosario Dawson was the better choice. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure Zoe Saldana says no to nudity scenes, if I remember correctly.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
I think you're right.
ScarJo did for a while, but now she doesn't. So this movie is a UK release. Came out on March 17th of 2013. It was released in the US on April 5th of 2013. Like I said, I saw it that opening weekend with my father. The budget for this film was $20 million. Pretty substantial budget. And Danny Boyle and producers and writers wanted the budget to be at least 20 or under, so the studios would not get involved in editing. And that is brilliant because Danny Boyle does not like the studios getting involved in his editing process. Now, granted, he also said that he sent a lot of the dailies to the editor while they were still shooting, and when they were finished wrapping shooting, the editor had cut majority of the movie together, and Danny Boyle watched it and was like, this is not what I remember shooting.
Oh, shit.
Isn't that crazy? No, in a good way.
Oh,
in a good
okay.
Danny Boyle was very much on board letting the editor take the reign of how to put this movie together, and he said that he was blown away. And he was excited to hear the audience reactions because he had watched the movie so many times, as a director, and then, you sit in a theater with people that have seen it for the first time and they have a different reaction. The United States gross of Trance was very, very low. It was $2.3 million. Did not do very well in the U.S., but worldwide, it did okay. It did $24.6 million. Not great, not bad, but still, for a movie from the U.K., for a worldwide box office, I don't think that's anything really to turn your nose up at. And V, before we switch over to your heist flick of the episode, what do you think the highest grossing worldwide box office was, since this is a UK release? Okay. Worldwide box office, highest grossing film. There is a sequel that came out several years ago. It's a very popular Disney movie.
Frozen?
They both are. There it is. Yes, Frozen was the number one highest grossing worldwide box office with $1.2 billion that year. Number two highest grossing worldwide box office is a third of a franchise. There are now ensemble movies with this character in these. He didn't make it.
Iron Man 3?
Iron Man 3. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Number 4 was a second of a trilogy, although it shouldn't have existed. I'll just tell you, it was The Desolation of Smaug, The Hobbit, the one with the dragon.
You're right.
Never saw that one.
It should not have existed.
Number 5 was The Hunger Games Catching Fire. I never saw that either. The sixth highest grossing worldwide box office was the sixth installment of the Fast and the Furious franchise. Number 7 was Monsters University. Number 8 was Gravity with Sandra Bullock, George Clooney, DP by Chivo, and Alfonso Cuarón as director. Number 9 was the horrendously produced Superman movie called Man of Steel. I hate that movie so much.
Me too.
Did not like it at all. Number 10 was Thor: The Dark World. I like that movie. I know a lot of people do not, and I think V, you actually like it too.
Yeah, we both think it's underrated.
Yeah, there we go. Number 12 was a terrible zombie movie with Brad Pitt called World War Z. I thought that movie sucked. Did not like it at all. Number 13, Oz the Great and Powerful. Very entertaining flick. I think it's going to be on this list on my side at some point because the special effects are amazing. It's a fun story.
Because most people think that movie sucked.
I know, yeah. It might have. I don't know. I got to watch it again. It's been a while. Number 14 was Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yes.
16, the Guillermo del Toro written and directed awesome kaiju battle sequence movie of all time, Pacific Rim. I love that movie. It's so much fun. Number 17, Scorsese and DiCaprio coming back at us with The Wolf of Wall Street. Number 20 was The Great Gatsby with DiCaprio. I also was not a big fan of that movie.
I did not like that book or that movie.
Yeah, I don't think I actually ever read the book. Number 23, a horror movie that will be on this October's list, The Conjuring, starring Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, directed by James Wan. One of the scariest fucking movies I've ever seen in my life. Great. 29, highest grossing worldwide box office via movie you love with an actor that I hate so much, and you're going to do this movie because you want me to watch it again.
We're the Millers?
We're the fucking Millers. Not looking forward to it, but who knows? Maybe I'll enjoy it this time around. Number 32 was American Hustle, David O. Russell and everybody involved. I actually liked that movie. I did not think it was that bad. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
No, it was great. David O.
movie.
Russell is a piece of shit, but that's a great movie.
Yeah, good movie. Christian Bale was great. Everybody involved was
Amy
great.
Adams.
Amy Adams, yeah, definitely a good cast. V, the number 43 highest grossing worldwide box office, coming in with $187.8 million. Your very first pick here at Movies You Miss Podcast, starring Ben Stiller.
The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Number 49, a terrifying movie, the sequel of which the fifth just came out in the franchise, Insidious Chapter 2. Number 52, a movie that got me right to my core, Mark Wahlberg and Eric Bana and so many other names in Lone Survivor, an absolutely fantastic film, but a heartbreaker of a film as well.
That's such a good movie, but I will always remember a member of the cast being interviewed by this dumbass reporter,
yeah.
and she's
so
like,
ridiculous.
"Oh, so did you talk to the guy? Since this is a true story, did you talk to him regarding his experience?" And he's like, "No, unfortunately, he passed away." And she's like, "Oh, he died?" And he goes, "Yeah, the film's titled Lone Survivor."
It was so dumb. And she even says to him, she goes, "I saw some of the movie. I didn't finish it. Did the character that you played survive?" And he goes, "It's called Lone Survivor."
What an idiot.
That's what it's called. Yeah. That was so painful. I hope she got fired.
Me too.
Number 61, Saving Mr. Banks, the film about getting Mary Poppins off the ground. Number 74, another pick of yours, V, and starring Chris Hemsworth and Daniel Bruhl. Rush, directed by Ron Howard, which is definitely a badass movie. Mm-hmm. I had a great time with that one. 82, highest grossing worldwide box office, a film you and I both love that will be on this list of mine, About Time, starring Domhnall Gleeson and Rachel McAdams. So that's Trance from 2013, directed by Danny Boyle, starring James McAvoy, Rosario Dawson, and Vincent Cassel. It is not streaming anywhere, but you can rent it on just about any streaming platform. I highly recommend it. Like I said, and V said, it takes so many different turns, you have no idea what's happening.
Wholeheartedly agree.
V, I think we can get into your steamy heist film as well. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. I'm very excited to talk about this movie.
Me too, because I don't know anything about it except for who's in it, and that it's awesome.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that you love this movie. It is certainly one of my all-time favorites.
Ah.
I love everything about this movie except for the fact that when my sister Amber introduced me to this movie, which is actually one of her favorites, I was 15 and I watched it with her and my father. And there's a sex scene in this movie that made it was awkward when I was 15 watching it with my father.
I'll bet.
But other than that, it's a great movie. I've seen it subsequently as I've gotten older with my father again, and it's not that big of a deal now. I'm not a teenager.
I think the first time I saw your pick, I actually was like, "Hey, Dad, can I watch Thomas Crown Affair?" He goes, "Yeah, you're old enough." And I took it down into my bedroom and watched it.
There you go.
So I didn't watch it. Yeah, I didn't watch it with him. I think it was one of those things where my dad was like, "I don't think I need to watch that one with my son."
Cool.
But maybe now we'd watch it together. I don't know.
For sure.
Who knows? Yeah.
Yes, this is a great movie. It is actually a remake, which we haven't done really on our show before, at least not that many of them.
No, we have not.
The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, funny enough, was a remake.
Yes.
But I actually think this is the superior movie.
Oh, yeah? You've seen the original?
I have seen the original. So the original Thomas Crown Affair was actually made almost exactly 30 years before this one. It was made and released in 1968. It starred Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway.
Oh, cool. Oh, well, interesting.
Yeah, so we'll get into that in a second. But there are several reasons why this movie is actually superior. First and foremost, the characters are more fully fleshed out. I think the chemistry is much better. And there are a lot of stronger subplots to fill in this movie to make it very cohesive and paced the right way. And so though Faye Dunaway and Steve McQueen are movie stars of the golden age of cinema, I actually prefer this version from 1999.
Nice.
So what is the Thomas Crown Affair about? Well,
I don't know. Tell us.
Funny enough, it's about a man named Thomas Crown.
Oh, look at that. Interesting.
He's a billionaire. He actually has a job, I think, or what I've interpreted from this movie, similar to Richard Gere in Pretty Woman. It seems like he takes companies and splits them up and sells them for a profit based on a couple of scenes, right? They don't explicitly say exactly what he does, but he is extremely wealthy, like billionaire status. And one of my favorite parts of the beginning of this movie is when he walks in the building and he's into work. There are these two guys standing in front of the elevator shooting the shit, and one of them's a security guard.
Oh, yeah.
And he clears his throat, and the security guard goes, "What, do you think you own the building or something?" And the other guy's like, "Oh, shit," and he drags the security guard away. And you overhear him say, "That man does own the building."
Yeah, that was good.
While we're being introduced to Thomas Crown, which, by the way, the very first scene of this movie is him sitting in a psychiatrist's office, which a funny coincidence between our two movies. Psychiatry or psychology is involved. He's speaking to a therapist. Now, who plays that therapist?
It looked like Faye Dunaway to me.
Because it was Faye Dunaway.
Oh, what did you look at that?
They brought her back, which I thought was a great way to honor her and the original.
Hell yeah.
I've actually met Faye Dunaway. I've had a brief conversation with her. She was lovely.
Oh, awesome.
Same year I met Rosario Dawson, which is funny, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're getting introduced to Thomas Crown here, played just to perfection, chef's kiss by Pierce Brosnan. Because who else can ooze sexy confidence other than James Bond himself?
I was going to say, the Bond man himself.
God, 90s Pierce Brosnan was so hot. I was absolutely in love with him. I love all of his Bond movies, which most of them will be on the list at some point on this show.
Awesome.
And as we're being introduced to him, there's also cutscenes to the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art. This is a museum that Thomas Crown loves. We see in the morning he visits it, and he has a conversation with the security guard. It's very clear he comes there all the time. And there is a statue being delivered. Turns out it's a horse statue. Ironic, I love it. And there are men that break out of this statue and then try to perform a heist at the museum later that afternoon, which so happens to be a time where Thomas Crown returns to the museum. He foils this robbery and right in the middle of it slides under a barrier and steals a painting for himself.
So sleek.
So awesome. And it turns out that Thomas Crown is actually the guy who's stealing a painting in this movie. That is the theft of this movie.
Yes.
Well, it's $100 million Monet. And so an insurance adjuster is sent to help cops investigate where the hell this went. This insurance agent is played eloquently by Renee Russo.
Mm-hmm.
She is also sexy as hell in this movie. And you and I had been talking about this actually before we started recording. She was gorgeous when she was younger, say, Lethal Weapon 3. But as she has gotten older, she's actually become sexy and elegant. And she is so hot in this movie, and she's age appropriate, which makes me so happy.
Yeah, she's not some 22-year-old hotshot or something like that.
Right, exactly. No, she's age appropriate.
Which would be in another movie probably, right?
Oh, for sure. We've seen it 1,000,001 times, right?
Yeah.
And instead, she's this age appropriate head-to-head rival of Thomas Crown's, and the chemistry these two have together. God damn, I wish they'd made more movies together.
Yeah, that would have been pretty sweet. And I like the way that she's introduced, especially when Dennis Leary starts kind of like getting whiff of like what's going on. I love that Dennis Leary plays like a straight character, not like some crazy, off the wall type of person like he normally does. Even when he's voicing Diego in Ice Age, it's like, oh, that's Dennis Leary for sure. But this one's like, he's a cop and he's not some, off the chain, like foul-mouthed son of a bitch.
Exactly. He is very straight-laced. You're absolutely right. He does, in fact, play Detective Michael McCann in this movie, and he's been assigned to try to solve this robbery that's now happened.
Mm-hmm.
He provides a lot of levity into this movie, or at least reality, because one of the first things he says is, oh, so it's just the one painting they got away with. And one of the museum guys is like, oh, it's a seminal work, and he's so flustered about it. And Dennis Leary turns to his partner and goes, I love this neighborhood. Some of these people are wearing my salary.
Yeah, that was good.
And he just puts a lot of perspective in this movie of like, dude, it's just a fucking painting, right? And I love that part about his character. And so, funny enough, this is in fact a cat and mouse game, similar to your movie.
Yes.
And it does involve, I would say, 2.5 people, because Dennis Leary isn't as prominent of a character as Catherine Banning, played by Rene Russo, and Thomas Crown, played by Pierce Brosnan. But he is a very strong supporting character and necessary to the plot, and I think a great addition. And every single scene with the two of them, Rene Russo and Pierce Brosnan in this movie, sizzles.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it's just so obvious that this billionaire, their lives are completely separate from ours, right? Like, they both have completely separate lives from normal people. And Thomas Crown is the main character of life, right? There's a big thing on social media now when they see somebody doing something spectacular, they say, oh yeah, they're the main character. All of us are NPCs. And
right.
Thomas Crown is the main character. We are all just living in his world.
Pretty much. And along for the ride.
Exactly. And another reason why I love this movie is the score. It's very prominent, actually. In a lot of movies we talk about, the score is maybe more subdued. It's just kind of this like sub-layer that adds to the movie. This score is very bright and bold, and there's a lot of scenes without any dialogue, and it plays very prominently. And so I love the score. It's actually one of the movies that introduced me to Nina Simone. The first one that did that was Point of No Return with Bridget Fonda and Gabriel Byrne, which will probably be on the list of movies at some point.
I never saw that one.
Oh, it's great. But this movie is fantastic. I love every scene, every second of it, every costume, every quip of dialogue, the back and forth, the sexiness, the chemistry. Everything about this movie I love from start to finish, and I'm so glad you enjoy it too.
Yeah, like I said, this was the second time I watched it in many, many years, and it's very enjoyable. Like you said, it's a sizzler. It does sizzle when they're both on the screen. It's very funny, and the cat and mouse bit of the whole movie is great. It does have those tropes, the billionaire whisking people away, and like the dialogue and the eloquence, and I don't know. It's just I feel like I could smell his cologne anytime he walked on screen. It was almost like I was in the room with him, and that was a cool thing about this movie and what John McTiernan did. He really brought you into the room with them and really made you feel like you were a part of the story and a part of, I guess, being on the witness stand of what Rene Russo's character is basically trying to prove in this movie.
Thank you so much for saying that. That's a really good point, and I'm glad you think that. And yes, I feel like I'm following along with them. I also wish that I could be either one of them. I'd be happy to be either, actually. I mean, definitely would love to be Thomas Crown. He runs his own life. He is the boss. He is in control completely. Of course, Rene Russo is incredible. She's cocky. She's confident for good reason. She's a total badass. She's just a smoke show. She's got great costumes. I love everything about her character as well.
Great legs.
She does have great legs. I love that dress that she wears at the ball.
Oh yeah, she uses her sexuality too in the movie, which I definitely like. That confidence in a woman is always very welcoming to just about any man on the planet. And I like when she shows up. She's got her dress is wide open. There's her garter and her high, knee-high stockings. And then at one point she sits down across from Dennis Leary and puts her legs up, and she's still wearing a very short skirt. And the entire time he's talking to her, his eyes are basically tracing her legs, And it's one of those movies where she's using all of that, and not because she's smarter than he is,
but
she's just seen. Of course, she is smarter than Dennis Leary's character, but she's just seen so much more than he has. A lot of his things, it's just a painting, or this. I love this part of town. People are wearing my salary. She's wearing his salary, and
Yes.
she's been part of that world for however many years, and that's why she's so in tune with it, and that's why I love how she just really sinks her teeth into the investigation. Really, with no questions. She's just like, move the fuck aside, I got this, don't worry about it. And she calls everybody out. It's like, that's one of the other things I love about her character, is she's not afraid to literally tell you that she's got you.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yes, and as you said, she uses all of her skill set, including being a beautiful woman, in brilliant ways. And yes, when she's the very first scene she's introduced, Dennis Leary's character, Detective McCann, is grumbling because, oh God, there's an insurance agent now who's going to be all over this case too. He goes, oh, so I'm stuck with you on my back. And she turns around slyly and goes,
A little fuzzy about who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Catherine Banning. Zurich Underwriters requested, well, actually,
Your insurance.
let's say there are a couple of Swiss gentlemen who'd rather not write a $100 million check.
So I'm stuck with you on my back.
Oh, come on, Lieutenant. Who knows? You might enjoy it.
Yeah, I like that.
and yes, they also have great back and forth as well, because she actually has great back and forth with everyone, not only Thomas Crown, but also Detective McCann.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
He's not gonna sell.
He's not.
This is an elegant crime done by an elegant person. It's not about the money.
Okay, so who's gonna risk prison to steal a Monet just to not sell it?
A Monet lover.
There's one thing about this movie that I will say irritated the living hell out of me. There's a moment where Rene Russo chugs a Pepsi One, and I mean she chugs the thing down, and she doesn't burp at the end of it. She just continues on with her life and her explanation without any sort of carbonation burp, and it really just does not make any sense.
Because Catherine Banning has never burped in her life.
I don't think she ever has.
Not the type of woman
No.
to do that.
No, and that's totally fine. At the same time, I feel like, I don't know, that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted.
It's not going to happen.
Something's wrong. Maybe it really wasn't a Pepsi One. Maybe it was a water.
She
maybe it
doesn't
was
drink
water in a
that
can.
swill. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no. It's funny because I hadn't actually seen a Pepsi One can in I don't know how long now, because it's all been Pepsi Zero or, Coke Zero and shit. So that was definitely a blast from the past of 1999.
Yeah.
And that's another cool thing about this movie is there's a couple things that, like the old cell phones, you're like, oh, wow, look at that. That's really dating this fucking movie big time.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you like this movie, and it does have a great cast. As I said, it stars Pierce Brosnan as the title character. He was the 90s James Bond. He became 90s James Bond because he started a 1980s TV show called Remington Steele. If anybody is a little bit older than 40, they might remember it. Of course, he's also starred in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, yes, of course he
He
did.
plays Stu. Sally Field's boyfriend.
I'm allergic to pepper. I can't do a very good Pierce Brosnan, but that's always the moment in that movie that I remember the most, of course, other than Run by Fruiting. And
God, we need to do that movie at some point.
absolutely.
He is also in a fantastically campy, kind of terrible, but awesome nonetheless, disaster movie called Dante's Peak.
Oh, yes, with Linda Hamilton.
With Linda Hamilton.
So awesome.
Sarah Connor from Terminator
Yes.
movies. He cannot sing at all, but it doesn't matter because he's Pierce Brosnan, so I'm happy that he starred in the Mamma Mia movies.
Oh, that's right. He was in those. Yeah, he was one of the fathers or potential fathers,
Yes, he plays Sam. I only ever watched the first Mamma Mia.
right? I haven't seen any Mamma Mia.
I'm surprised your wife didn't make you watch either of those movies, actually.
No, there are movies I don't make Amy watch with me, and there are movies she will never make me watch with her, and that's definitely
Good
one or two of them.
compromise. Good agreement. And he was the only good thing about this DC comic book movie that you and I watched together, Black
Yeah.
Adam.
That's right, he was. And I was trying to think because I know we just saw him in something, and he had a beard, and I was like, he still looks pretty good. And it was
He's
Black
a
Adam.
Silver Fox now. He is Dr. Fate in Black Adam, and as I said, he's the only good part of that whole entire movie.
Yeah, that movie was not good.
Rene Russo has only starred in 29 movies.
Oh, wow.
She only has 29 credits to her name, and she just has one of those eyes or one of those agents who knows how to pick a good one.
Yeah, really?
Because she's been in some fantastic movies. She was in a sports comedy called Major League that is absolutely on this list.
Never saw it.
She's in a sci-fi guilty pleasure of mine that I've mentioned several times on this podcast, but have yet to do, called Free Jack.
Oh.
She's, of course, in Lethal Weapon 3 and 4.
Of course.
She's in the disease thriller Outbreak.
Yes. Good movie.
She's also in a great Clint Eastwood, John Malkovich movie called In the Line of Fire.
Oh, I've never seen that one either. I heard that's a good one.
Yeah, it's great. Clint Eastwood plays a Secret Serviceman. It's awesome.
Nice.
She's in Get Shorty, one of my favorite comedies from the 90s, a movie you have not ever finished.
No, I'll have to, though, I'm sure, at some point.
She reteamed with Mel Gibson for the movie Ransom.
Oh, yes.
Of course, she's Thor's mom.
That's right. Oh, yeah, she's hot, too.
She is. And she is also just as sexy in the Make My Skin Crawl movie Nightcrawler, starring Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, yes. Yeah, she's good in that.
I don't think I can ever see that movie again. I've seen it once. And
Well, you'll have to.
Is it on the list?
It will be, I'm sure.
Okay.
It's a great movie. It's one of my favorite Gyllenhaal movies.
It is a great movie. It is also one of my favorite Gyllenhaal movies, but goddamn.
And Bill
that's
Paxton's
hard
in
to
it.
watch. Oh, that's right.
Yes. It is hard to watch. Yeah. But, yeah, we'll get to it.
As we mentioned, Dennis Leary plays Detective McCann in this movie. He was the stepdad in Sandlot, the classic kids sport movie.
Oh, my gosh. That's right. He was. I hate that movie.
Oh, really? I had no idea.
I am one of probably a very small select group of people that truly despise The Sandlot.
All right.
And every time somebody says to me, "You're killing me, Smalls," I just want to punch him in the face.
I won't show you the T-shirt that I own that has it on the front.
Oh, gosh. Well, I would never hit you. Maybe metaphorically, but not physically.
He also is in a fantastic campy action movie starring Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes called Demolition Man.
Oh, yeah. We've talked about that one.
Yeah. He's in Suicide Kings.
Oh, cool. With Christopher Walken.
Yep. He is.
Nice.
He stars in A Bug's Life, one of the early Pixar movies. He plays Francis the Ladybug. Oh, just because I'm a ladybug, automatically it makes me a girl, huh?
Oh, my God. I thought that was Christian Slater.
Nope, that's Dennis Leary.
Oh, my gosh. That is hilarious. For the longest time, I thought that was Christian Slater. I don't have any fucking idea why. But now it all makes sense. I promised the little ones I'd teach them canasta. Yeah, like that movie's funny.
We should pick that movie because I bet a lot of people haven't seen it now that it's as old as it is.
I feel like you're right. Yeah, and it's got a hell of a voice cast, too.
It really does.
Bonnie Hunt is in it, a good friend of ours.
Oh, yes, friend of the podcast.
Yeah.
He, as you mentioned, plays Diego, the saber-toothed tiger in the movies all of the Ice Age movies.
That's right. That became a franchise for some unknown frickin' reason.
He starred in a ton of seasons of the show Rescue Me.
I hear it's great. I never saw it.
I saw the first season. It was really good.
He's a firefighter or something like that, right?
He is, and then he's a cop in the movie The Amazing Spider-Man starring Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. He plays Gwen Stacy's father.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
He's very good in it. And lastly, he starred in season 2 of Law & Order Organized Crime, starring Chris Maloney.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
He plays crooked detective Frank Donnelly in that season. He's really good in that, too. He's a good fucking actor, actually, now that we talk about it.
Yeah, he is.
He's really
got
good.
Quite the resume.
He does, and he's got some good range. Frankie Faison plays his partner in The Thomas Crown Affair. He's starred in The Money Pit. He's the landlord in Coming to America.
Yeah.
That movie's so good.
Coming to America is classic.
Hilarious. And he's in Mississippi Burning. He's in Do the Right Thing. He's Coconut Sid in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's also in Free Jack, actually. He's a small part in Free Jack,
cool.
which is cool. And he plays Barney in The Silence of the Lambs and subsequent Hannibal Lecter movies, including Hannibal and Red Dragon, yes.
We can't forget about him in the Wayans Brothers comedy classic, White Chicks.
God. You know what I think we should do? I pick We're the Millers, and you pick White Chicks, and we'll both hate each other's movies.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Faye Dunaway, as we mentioned, is in this movie as a psychiatrist. She was in the original Thomas Crown Affair. She also starred in Bonnie and Clyde. Chinatown, which is a phenomenal movie, which I wish we could do on this podcast, but it was actually directed by Roman Polanski, and he's a piece of shit, so I won't ever give him any airtime on this show. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I've never seen Chinatown.
Well, maybe after
or
he's
Bonnie and Clyde.
dead, I can do it.
Yeah, maybe.
She also was in Network and Towering Inferno, some of the classics.
Never saw either of those either.
Oh, God, those are all classic movies.
Nice.
And Alan Trussman is one of the writers. He actually wrote the original to this movie.
Oh, wow. Nice.
He also wrote Bullet, which starred Steve McQueen as well, which is on the list. I know you have not seen it. One of the best car chases in all of movie history is in that movie. And he also wrote They Call Me Mr. Tibbs, starring Sidney Poitier.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. The two writers who updated this movie for current times, one was Leslie Dixon, who has... I should know her name because she's written some of my favorite movies. She wrote the movie Overboard.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
With Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. I love that movie Overboard. It's great. She was one of the writers on Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, awesome.
She wrote the remake to Freaky Friday, starring one of our friends, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes.
As well as the adaptation of Hairspray. And she also wrote the movie Limitless, starring Bradley Cooper and Robert De Niro.
I did not hate that movie at all. I liked it. I remember.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And Kurt Wimmer was the other writer of this film. He has written a ton of awesome films. He wrote the adaptation to Sphere.
Oh.
A sorely underrated Christian Bale action movie called Equilibrium that's on our list.
Ah, yeah, Equilibrium is bitchin'.
Oh, I'm so glad you've seen it. Awesome.
Yes, I have. I like that one.
He wrote The Recruit, starring Al Pacino and Colin Farrell, which was actually pretty good.
That is a good movie also. Yeah, I remember seeing that on Valentine's Day with friends of mine and not a date.
Nice. He wrote the Keanu Reeves cop movie, which I think is really awesome and underrated, called Street Kings.
I've been wanting to see Street Kings for a long time.
Oh, it's super good. I like it a lot.
Nice.
He wrote Law Abiding Citizen with Gerard Butler and Jamie Foxx.
That movie's brutal.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, more recently, he's written the remake to Point Break. I don't know why you would ever do that, but his earlier works are awesome, so I wanted to highlight him.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
And lastly, John McTiernan directed this movie, who is a...
Name sounds familiar.
Badass as it should. Anybody growing up in the 80s and 90s should absolutely recognize this man's name because he directed Predator.
Yes.
And Die Hard.
Yes.
One of our picks. It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
The Hunt for Red October. He directed an underrated Sean Connery movie that's probably going to be on our list called Medicine Man.
Oh, sweet.
Last Action Hero.
Oh, I love that movie.
Die Hard with a Vengeance, number 3 in the series. It's amazing.
haven't seen that one.
He directed The 13th Warrior starring Antonio Banderas, which is an adaptation of Michael Crichton's book, and I think it'll be on the list because I think it's underrated.
Okay, I'm down.
He directed Rollerball, which is a remake, which was so stupid.
Yeah, that was LL Cool J and Chris Klein.
Chris
right?
Klein, that's right. Nice, that's right.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And Jean Reno's in that movie. That movie sucked. I saw that movie in theaters with my buddies, and we were like, "What the hell is going on?" Yeah, not a good movie.
And lastly, he directed this movie that's widely forgotten, starring John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, called Basic in 2003.
Oh my God, Basic is badass. Have you seen it?
It is. I saw it in theaters.
Basic is such a badass movie. I saw that in theaters too. Blew me away.
Yeah.
It came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was so good. Bitchin' fucking movie. If nobody's seen Basic, yeah, that's a good movie.
So Rollerball sucks for multiple reasons, and one of them is that unfortunately it led to John McTiernan's imprisonment.
Whoa.
Yeah, so unfortunately, for some reason, John McTiernan, I haven't found any articles that say exactly why, but John McTiernan illegally wiretapped and spied on the producer of Rollerball.
Oh my gosh.
He then made false statements to the FBI about it.
Whoa.
And in 2006 was charged in federal court for these crimes and spent multiple years in prison.
Holy shit.
and was eventually released in 2014 and served the remainder of his sentence under house arrest. So that's what happened to John McTiernan.
That's wild.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah. And there are only a couple of pieces of trivia about this movie, which is okay because we don't need to know all of the behind the scenes for this movie to be incredible. In fact, it's one of the few movies that I like just staying immersed in it, not knowing all of the behind the scenes trivia. So there's only a couple.
Sure.
One of them being that the Metropolitan Museum of Art refused permission to film in the interior.
Oh, wow.
So they used the New York Public Library instead. So a lot of the interior shots for what's supposed to be the museum is actually done a few blocks away at the New York Public Library. They also used a soundstage for a lot of the rest. They were able to film in front of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, though, so that's real.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yes, and speaking of nudity, Renee Russo performed her first nude scenes of her career in this movie. Because
there you go.
Not only is there a sex scene, but she also does appear topless in this movie.
Indeed, she does.
Now, the only piece of trivia that I knew before going into this episode, I've known this for years because I thought it was so cool and very relevant to my movie fandom at the time, so I found this out right when this movie was actually released in 1999. In the scene where Thomas Crown is at that ball, his tie is untied from his tux. It's a white bow tie. This is because, at the time, Pierce Brosnan was James Bond, and in his contract, it was stated he was not allowed to appear in any other film or TV show or anything wearing a tuxedo.
No way.
That is James Bond's calling card is a tuxedo,
Wow.
And so for the Thomas Crown affair, they had to make sure they didn't violate any of that contract.
Crazy.
Yeah. So that's the Thomas Crown Affair, released in 1999. It had a budget of $48 million, which is...
$48 million. Wow.
Actually, I was kind of surprised. It seems kind of small given the star power in it.
Maybe.
I guess
48, that seems like a big one.
Yeah, for 1999, I guess. I just remember for the year 2000, What Lies Beneath, starring Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer, was $100 million.
Right. Yeah. That's true. Good point.
And the good news is that in the U.S. box office, it made $69 million.
Nice.
And thank you. Worldwide, it made $124 million.
Hell yeah.
So
it
did
pretty
great.
Good.
Yeah, it did. And the good news is that you can watch this movie on just about every streaming service for free. It's on YouTube, Tubi, Pluto, Roku, and Amazon Prime.
Through Amazon Prime through Freebie. Or Freevee, whatever the hell it's called, because that's how I watched it with breaks involved.
Yes, it does have some commercials. Not too terribly disruptive, I hope.
This time around, it was disruptive.
Okay.
This time around, I think I got like 13 commercial
What
breaks
the shit?
in 2 hours.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I got a lot. I should have just rented it for $3.99, but
Maybe...
I also could have just borrowed my parents' DVD copy.
There you go. Well, maybe on YouTube or Tubi, it has less commercial breaks.
I'm sure it does.
So that is the Thomas Crown Affair. Please give it a watch if you've never seen it, or revisit it. It absolutely holds up, and it's one of my all-time favorite movies.
This was a great episode. I enjoyed both of these movies very much. I thought they paired together fantastically, and definitely some interesting information coming back from Thomas Crown Affair that I did not know before.
Great. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree that this was a good pairing. I wasn't sure at first because when I picked Thomas Crown Affair, you paired Trance with it, and I hadn't ever really seen or heard of that movie before, and lo and behold, Perfect pairing. Nicely done.
Indeed.
A little bit grittier than the Thomas Crown Affair, that's for sure.
Just a little bit, yeah.
A little dirtier.
And V, would you watch Thomas Crown Affair with your grandma?
I think I would, actually. It's a very sleek movie. It's very polished. It does have a sex scene in it. Like I said, it does have a topless woman in it. But not only does it move the plot forward, but it's, can I say, tastefully done? And as I said, I've seen this movie as I've gotten older with my parents, and yeah, it's not really uncomfortable to watch it with my parents, so I definitely think teenagers and above could probably watch this movie, maybe 16, 17 and above.
Yeah, for sure.
And John, would you watch Trance with your grandma?
I don't think I would. This might be one that I would leave away, not have grandma watch this one with me.
It is...
Only because of not so much the grittiness, but the full frontal female nudity.
There's full frontal female nudity repeatedly in this movie.
A couple of times, definitely not just one time.
in this movie.
Yeah.
A lot of violence, a lot of overt violence. Like, it is right in your face.
It does kind of take the wind out of you.
Yeah. Still a great movie, though.
Indeed.
Well, I think that wraps up our second heist episode.
Yeah.
John, do you want to tell everyone what we're doing next week?
I'm excited for next week because this movie is a lot of fun. I've seen it several times. My wife is also a big fan of it. I'm choosing the Disney-produced Amy Adams, James Marsden, Susan Sarandon, Idina Menzel, and some guy from some show called Grey's Anatomy.
Patrick
I am
Dempsey.
choosing Patrick Dempsey. That's right. Yeah, whatever his name is. I have chosen the animated and live-action film. This is Enchanted from 2007. You can watch it on Disney+.
And to complement that, I too am picking a princess movie, though this one is definitely regarded as a classic because this is Rob Reiner's The Princess Bride.
Nice. Just read that book to my wife.
Oh, nice. Well, the funny thing is you can also find it on Disney+.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that about wraps up episode 67. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We love having you participate in this discussion with us. Please follow us on social media at Movies You Missed Pod and rate, review, or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And if you're following us on social media, please feel free to share any of our posts or the stories that we post on Instagram. It's super helpful to get the word out. Maybe get some of your friends or family introduced to the podcast. My mother is a champion of retweeting all of my tweets on Twitter, so thank you, Mom. But yes, any word of mouth or sharing that any of you can do is super helpful, so thank you so much. And we, of course, like to end the podcast with film as a form of art, and in art, all opinions are valid, except if you think
you should only be paid $180 a day to have your body scanned and then used in perpetuity in every background scene that any producer or studio executive feels that they can use it in. And if you are not aware of what's going on with that and why we mentioned that, because SAG-AFTRA is now on strike with the WGA. And stand in solidarity.
That's right, we support the WGA and SAG-AFTRA in their strikes. It's very important, and please read about how no one has gotten any residuals from streaming services. It is so eye-opening for so many people about how the technology once again has evolved faster than contracts, than business practices, than salaries. So please support SAG-AFTRA and the WGA however you can. We certainly will.
Yes.
And we hope they know that we are standing in support with them.
Yeah, and just a real quick note on that, like V mentioned with the residuals, back in the day, you could sell your TV show of 4 or 5 seasons and get residuals the entire time it aired on television. Now, you don't really get that with streaming. I just read that Mandy Moore, one of the stars of This Is Us, which is a very popular Golden Globe and Emmy-winning series, does not make any more than about 81 cents a residual check because of streaming residual contract situations right now. And that's ridiculous. That's not how it should be. And not just for Mandy Moore, but that's just one example of hundreds of thousands of actors that are not getting paid the proper payment that they should be.
Absolutely right. Thank you for bringing that up, John.
Indeed.
All right, until next time, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everybody.